Hi, my name is Jillian Sanders, and I'm here today to teach you about electric fencing for bears. I've been using electric fencing to protect my beehives from bears for more than 20 years. And through my work, I've helped to install more than 130 electric fences specifically to keep out black and grizzly bears from all kinds of agricultural attractants, such as chickens and other poultry, small livestock like goats, sheep, or pigs, even carcass disposal areas, small orchards, or even just a couple backyard fruit trees. Electric fencing is a fantastic tool, but it needs to be set up in mind with the animal that you are trying to keep in or out of the protected area. It is always easier to prevent conflicts with bears than it is to actually experience conflict. I spent many sleepless nights worried about my beehives and animals before I installed electric fencing when I knew bears were active in my area. Here we had a mother grizzly bear with two small cubs killing poultry. We got the birds in the coop and set up the electric fence. These bears never killed poultry again here. You can see the cubs sniffing around the wires and the importance of the nose shock. For bears, it is very important to remember that their thick fur can actually insulate them from the shock. Therefore, I go for a nose or a face shock to deter bears. I set up multiple hot wires spaced at about 8 inches apart. Bears' noses are wet and sensitive. It's how they gather information about the world, and the nose is the leading part of the body. Even for bears who have killed livestock, I have been able to deter them from remaining livestock with the installation of electric fencing and a strong shock to the nose. For the purpose of this video, I'm not promoting any one brand of electric fencing equipment. There are many decent brands on the market. However, when selecting your fence Energizer, be sure to have a minimum output of at least 1 joule and 7,000 volts. When designing your electric fence for bears, consider whether it is a permanent area that you wish to protect, or perhaps it's seasonal when fruit's coming on ripe, rotating grazing, movable beeyards, or even hunting and outfitting camps out in the bush. When possible, build a permanent fence. They're stronger and also pose a physical barrier to bears. A temporary fence relies solely on a psychological barrier and may require more maintenance. There are plug-in fence energizers for on-grid applications. These actually provide a more consistent charge. However, for off-grid uses, there are solar and battery options. These two subadult sibling grizzly bears are checking out a livestock carcass composting area that is protected by a permanent electric fence. Bears can be very motivated to access rich food sources. Here's the same fence in the daylight. It has a hot-cold wire configuration powered by solar power with a double-wide electrified gate to allow machinery easy access. If an animal touches a hot wire, the charge passes through the body of the animal to the earth and completes the circuit through the earth to the ground rods and back to the Energizer. Dry or sandy earth does not conduct electricity well and inhibits grounding. For large areas and in dry conditions, it's recommended to alternate some grounded cold wires into your fence design to ensure an effective ground. In a hot-cold alternating fence, if the animal touches both a hot and a cold wire at the same time, the charge is grounded through the cold wire and the circuit is completed faster and with an effective shock. Pause here if you would like to learn more about hooking up a hot-cold alternating fence. I have found it essential that your bottom wire is hot to prevent digging. If you were to see signs of digging, splice a new piece of wire onto your lowest hot wire to fill in the gap and to ensure nose contact. Here we see a mother grizzly bear with 3 cubs checking out the same area. By not allowing bears to find food near homes and farmyards, we encourage them to move through the valley rather than hanging around our yards. This fence energizer is installed underneath the overhang of the shed to protect it from the weather. We deliberately put the ground plate into the earth underneath the overhang of the shed, so anytime it rains, the earth around the ground plate is wet and more conductive. These insulators are made for nailing or screwing directly onto wooden fence posts. When adding hot wires around existing mesh fencing, you may need to use extended insulators to keep your hot wires well and clear away from your existing fence. Use no thinner than a 14 gauge wire for your permanent fencing. Electric fence maintenance is key for it to work properly. If your hot wire were to touch your existing mesh, you would lose all of your charge. I have staked this mesh in and away from the hot wires. As well, right now, I'm going to clear away some of this dead grass from the lower wire. If your voltage reads less than 7,000 volts, then you need to find any electrical shorts in your fence. Turn off the Energizer, clear your fence lines, and turn your Energizer back on. Check your voltage again. If you do not have at least 7,000 volts, repeat the process. For seasonal or temporary fences, this horse rope is great for rolling and unrolling. It has a nylon braid with 1,000 pounds breaking point and 6 conductive hot wires throughout the braid. This is a T-post. It is good for a semi-permanent fence post. There are insulators that fit directly onto T-post. Again, either a shorter one or an extended one. They just wrap on like that. You can also use rebar for a very temporary fence. There are insulators that fit directly onto the rebar and tighten into place. This seasonal temporary fence uses 5 hot strands of nylon horse rope and rebar posts to protect these 2 fruit trees from bears. This nylon mesh is useful to rotate grazing of small livestock. It has hot and cold wires woven throughout the mesh. However, these fiberglass posts are a bit flimsy, so to be sure to stake down your corners and keep your mesh nice and taut. So here, to open this gate, we have all of these hot wires going this way, those hot wires going that way. I simply open this handle, and then I can open the door. When you're ready to hook up your fence, you attach a wire to your hot terminal with one end. Make sure you have a good connection, and at the other end, you splice onto your electric hot wire. With this end, I'm attaching this ground cable to the ground terminal. And now we're ready to turn on our fence. Some people are concerned around safety and electric fencing. Because I use high voltage but low amperage, there is very little risk to either children or pets. Also, electric fence energizers have a capacitor that sends out the electricity on a pulse. You can hear this tick when your fence is working. That means the energy is on and off, and nobody or no animal can get locked into that current. Many electric fence energizers are made for pasturing out animals such as horses, and are not strong enough to deter a bear. Grizzly bears have large home ranges that encompass high and low elevation habitats. With increasing interest in local food, more people are raising meat, eggs, and crops in our backyards. Electric fencing is cost-effective, safe, and easy to install. It provides a long-term solution to grizzly bear agricultural conflicts and benefits both bears and people. This video is brought to you by Grizzly Bear Coexistence Solutions, with many thanks to Jen Cookson for directing and editing, and with support from the Trans-Border Grizzly Bear Project and funding from the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation.